Welcome back, everyone, to Vision Mix Studios and VisionRecordingStudios.com. How are you today? Hey, this video I want to do came by request. Again, our subscribers are joining up in massive rates, which I'm really happy about. So before we get started, thanks so much for liking, subscribing, sharing our videos with everyone. It's really starting to pay off. We're getting close to that 2,000 subscriber mark, which again, to a lot of people may not be a lot, but to someone like me who only had 50 or 60 subscribers 6 or 8 months ago, it's a lot. And I'm glad these videos are helping. Continue to get emails every single day. Comments are left on the different pages for the videos, talking about how much they like the videos, giving some feedback and some additional tips that I may have missed in the video. People are sharing with others, and that's great. And that's what this is all about. And I really appreciate it. So keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing. The more participation I get from you guys, the better these videos can be and the better content I can create. So having said that, today's video has to do with a question that came in a couple of weeks ago. Actually, they left a comment on one of the pages, and it was underneath one of the videos. I forget which one, but it had to do with vocals, and they were having a difficult time getting what they described as a polished professional vocal sound. And how do you get that? And that's a pretty broad topic. When you talk about polished and professional vocal, I assume that means you just want something that sounds really good, sounds pro, right? So I want to talk about today the things that I do to try to achieve that sound. I like to think that I get a really good vocal sound most of the time on my recordings, so I'm going to share with you how I get it, what gear and stuff I use, and my kind of signal flow. And then you can take that information and do what you want with it. Maybe I'll give you some ideas. Maybe there'll be some things for you to think about that you haven't thought about, et cetera, et cetera. So when you talk about vocals, or any instrument for that matter, but especially vocals, when you talk about how do we get a great vocal sound, we got to start all the way at the beginning, right? First thing you have to have, it's a great singer, right? Pretty obvious. The better the singer, the better the final product's going to sound. I don't care what kind of microphone you put in front of a lousy singer. I don't care what kind of hardware you use, what kind of software you use, what kind of plugins you use, cables, what kind of mood lighting you have. It doesn't matter. If the singer can't sing, then the vocal track is not going to sound professional and polished, right? The old saying is you can't polish a turd. So it all starts with a great singer. You can take a great singer, or just a very good singer. It doesn't have to be a pro level singer, a really good amateur singer, and you can make that sound amazing, right? You can't take a lousy singer and make them sound great. You just can't do it. I don't care what auto-tune and Melodyne and all that stuff. You got to have someone who can sing, who can deliver a performance with emotion, someone who can sing in key, preferably. If they miss some notes here and there, you can use Melodyne and auto-tuning. You can fix certain notes. But for the most part, they got to be able to sing in key. They got to be able to sing with passion, deliver performance. And once you got that, again, that's 80% of the battle. It's just like when you record a drum kit. If you capture the drum kit right and you get good raw tracks, the mix is going to come together pretty nice. It's going to sound professional. And if you have any mixing chops at all, even at the beginner level, if you have something that's recorded really well, it's difficult to make it sound bad. I mean, unless you really don't know what you're doing. But I know everyone that's watching this channel is learning from me and learning from other people as well on YouTube, and they got their stuff together. So I know you guys are able to at least take something that's recorded well and get some good balances. Some people have sent me some of their mixes recently, and you guys kind of know what you're doing. So that's good. I'm really hopeful in that regard. So it all starts with a good singer, okay? Once male, female, doesn't matter. So once you have a good singer, the next step is, well, what kind of microphone you're going to use? Every singer is a little different. Now, I'm catering, and this channel's catering for the most part to the home studio guy and gal, or the project studio guy and gal. And we may not have, a locker room full with microphones. We don't have the option of having a $3,500 used or a $5,000 new, Neumann U87, right? Most of us don't have that. I don't have that. Okay. Most people recording in their home, recording in their project studios, someone who's in the beginning stages of trying to start their business, whether it be part-time or full-time, or someone who's just recording as for fun as a hobbyist and just wants to make great recordings, can't necessarily afford those high-end microphones. Which is not a bad thing, by the way, because the good news is you don't need a $5,000 microphone to record a great vocal track and make it sound professional and polished. Some of the most famous singers in the world have recorded on $99 microphones in the studio at one time or another in their career. Metallica, Michael Jackson, Prince, U2, and the list goes on, and I'll talk about that microphone in a second. Yes, there are many singers, and most high-end studios have the real big high-end microphones. That's true, but you don't need that at the home studio level or at the project studio level. You don't need it. But you need to decide what kind of microphone you're going to use. For a female vocalist, for a male vocalist, what type of music is it? What kind of singer are they? Are they a real powerful rock, edgy singer, kind of a heavy metal screamo type of a vocal? Or is it kind of a laid-back singer-songwriter, kind of a more pretty type sound, soft sound? The microphone choice makes a big difference. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Let's talk about microphones for a second. You say, well, what do you use, Dave? If you listen to my recordings on my website, visionrecordingstudios.com or visionmixstudios.com, a lot of those vocals, 70-80% of all the sound samples on my website I've recorded here in the studio. Some of those things are just mix and mastering projects that weren't recorded with me, but most of them are. Female vocals, male vocals, all different styles of music. Here's the microphone selection that I use. So there's two types of microphones you're going to use to record vocals: dynamic microphones or condenser microphones. For the most part, you're not going to record with ribbon microphones vocals. At least I don't. Okay, so let's talk about dynamic microphones for a second. Let me reach over here and grab the first one. So hopefully you can see this. I don't have a picture-in-picture, so I don't know what you're looking at. I'm just looking directly into the camera. But right here we have a good old trusty, every studio ought to have a dozen of these, is the Shure SM57. And when you think Shure SM57, people automatically think guitar amplifiers, right? Stick this up against a guitar cabinet, electric guitars will sound amazing. Stick this on a snare drum, it'll sound great. All true. Stick this in front of a rock vocalist, especially a rock male vocalist, sounds amazing. Some of the artists that I mentioned before, Metallica, at one point, I forget which record, I've seen him in the studio record with this microphone. I know Prince has recorded with this microphone. Bono from U2 on some records has recorded vocals with this microphone. And the list goes on. Madonna, it's another one. The Truth or Dare record, I believe, was recorded, the vocals, or at least part of the vocal tracks were recorded with this. I've read that somewhere. Sorry. Bumped this out of, hopefully got my signal back here. Sorry about that. So SM57, try it. It's a great $99 microphone. You probably have one of these in your studio. It's not just for guitar cabinets and for snare drums. It is good for vocals, females as well. But what I use this for a lot is when I have a heavy rock, metal male vocalist. That's what this microphone really works good on. So here's one microphone you could try, okay? The second microphone, when we talk about dynamic microphone, is the one I'm speaking into right now. This is the Shure SM7B. Known as more for a broadcast microphone. It's kind of a step up from the SM57 as far as this sounds great on guitar cabinets. Really, really good on guitar cabinets, even better than the SM57 in my mind. But also, again, loud, aggressive vocals. This microphone works really, really well. The thing about this microphone is it has a real low output, so you have to really jack up the gain to get good signal on this microphone, unlike the SM57 or some of the condenser microphones we're going to talk about in a second. But this microphone I'm talking into right now will sound amazing on a rock vocal. Again, it could be for other types, but that's where it tends to shine in my mind. And also try it on guitar cabinets, it works really well. So that's the second microphone I have in my studio, the SM7B by Shure. Okay, and those are the two dynamics that I have. I mean, I have other dynamic microphones I use for other things in the studios, but for vocals, those are the two dynamic microphones I use most frequently. When we get into condenser microphones, here's another tried and true microphone that every studio should have. This is the Rode NT1A. This microphone runs about $199. You could probably buy it for $150 on eBay. Again, this sounds good on a lot of different things, but it also sounds great on vocals. For a large condenser microphone, this sounds great. I've used this on male, female vocals. I've used it in a lot of places: room mics, pianos, not guitars so much, acoustic guitars, but not electrics. But again, this is another great vocal mic choice. If you're on a budget and you need, you only can afford a few $100, pick up one of these and pick up an SM57. By the way, the Shure SM7B is about $350 if you were to buy it new. So it's a little bit more than the SM57, a little bit more than this, but it's a wonderful microphone. This is about $200. So this is another good mic to try. Some say that this sounds a little dark when you record it. Nothing that an EQ can't fix, folks. So if you find this is a little darker sounding, needs a little more top end, you could put an EQ on it in the mix and get that to sound a little bit more airy if you want. Great microphone. Excuse me. The next microphone that I have that I use a lot, it's a little more higher end. This is Lawton Audio, the FC357 large condenser mic. This sounds wonderful on female vocals, especially. Sounds great on males too, but female vocals, it really seems to shine. This microphone new runs about $900, so it's a little bit more money. It's starting to get up there in price. But this sounds wonderful for the money. It's got a lot of features on it. It's got a plus or minus 10 dB pad here. It's got some 3 different polar patterns where like the NT1A doesn't have any of that. It just is what it is. It's cardioid and that's it. This gives you some choices, but this has a nice, really nice, airy, smooth top end. Again, solid state mic. These are great. A step up or two from the NT1A. So that's the other microphone that I use all the time, the Lawton FC357. Okay, so we talked about 4 different microphones, 2 different dynamic microphones, 2 different large condenser microphones, all of them less than $1,000, most of them less than $500, except for the Lawton Audio. That's all you really need when you talk about microphones. Yes, you can go out and try, there's thousands of microphones out there that you can try. And there's some real expensive ones, the U87s, the AKG 414s. There's a lot of great, microphones that run over the $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 range, and they're going to sound great. But that is not, if you're on a budget in your home studio, I would say you don't need to spend that much money on a vocal microphone. If you have some of these other types of microphones and you want something better, you want to make that next step up, then sure, those are wonderful microphones. But again, I think this channel is catering to people that are more on a budget, more in the intermediate to, just starting to get into the more advanced level of recording, that don't have piles and piles of cash to go out and spend tons of money. I'd rather see you spend your money on a great set of monitors for your mixing than, a $3,000 microphone when you could buy a $1,000 microphone and get really good results if you have the right singer. Okay, so that's mic choice, and that's all I use. I don't have real high-end microphones, as I said. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about from the microphone is cables. Do cables make a difference? Yes, they do. Yes, I mean the XLR, the microphone cable. Again, you can buy a 20-foot microphone cable for $19, and you can buy a 20-foot microphone cable for $300. Do you need to go all the way to either one or extreme or the other? No. I wouldn't buy a cheap cable, but you don't need to buy a real high-end cable either. I tend to use Mogabi is the cables that I use, and Monster cables, the higher-end Monster cables, especially for things like vocals. The cables do make a difference. You want something that's a higher-end cable. You can read online about them, a 20-foot cable, $50, $60, somewhere in that ballpark. If you're trying to create that vocal chain, if just for vocals, you're saying, look, all the other instruments, it doesn't really matter as much, but for my vocal channel, I want to have, really good mics. I want to have really good cables. I want to have one nice channel strip. Get yourself a higher end cable. Again, Monster cable, Mogavi, there's other types. Those are the 2 main brands that I use. They work well. They're warranted for life. They sound great. There is a difference between that and a $19 20-foot cable. There is a difference. So make sure you have a decent cable. Make sure you use your cable testers. You treat your cables good so they don't get all banged up and you get shorts in them, so on and so forth. Okay, so then from the cable, we got to go into something, right? We got to go into either an audio interface of some kind. Again, I use the PreSonus Studio Live 1642 as my audio interface. They have great preamps on them. you can use just about any audio interface you have, anything with a decent preamp today. Most consumer audio interfaces, whether it's by PreSonus, Focusrite, or one of, any other name brand out there, Mbox, Motu, they all make decent preamps. Now, the question always comes up, is it good? Is that good enough? Is that preamp good enough, or do I need an external hardware preamp? And again, it depends. It depends on what you're looking for. A lot of the external hardware stuff, and I have some, and I'll show it to you in a second, not only may be a better sounding preamp, but in a lot of cases adds color to the sound, which you may desire. Which, if you're looking for something to colorize the sound to give it a warmer, vintagey type feel, or a smoother type feel, or a tube-like type feel, outboard gear may be for you. It may be the way to do it. So what I have, and I do use this for vocal. I use it for a lot of things, but if I'm tracking a band, I use the PreSonus as the majority of my inputs. But on the vocal channel, I use a 500 series rack, which I hope again you can see this here. This is a chassis with two 500 series modules. The chassis is made by Radial, the workhorse. API makes the Lunchbox, which is a little bit more well known. This is the 3-space chassis. And I have, as my preamp for my vocals, I use the Rupert Neve Designs 511 Pre, okay, which has this wonderful thing called the Silk Control, which kind of emulates the old Neve consoles from back in the day. Adds some really nice harmonic distortion. I think it has up 60 or 66, I think it is. Yeah, 66 or 7, yeah, 66 dB of gain headroom here, which is great. Polarity slips, phantom power, and a high pass filter. And this little Silk Control, which it's unplugged right now, so it doesn't light up, is what gives this, goes from completely transparent, more modern sounding to more vintagey sounding, and anything in between. Really, really nice preamp for the money. I think the Neve runs about $800 or so, brand new. You could probably find them used, although I don't see too many used ones because people typically don't sound. They keep them. They sound wonderful. Okay, so that's the Neve. From there, I go into a compressor. This is by Grace Design. Again, when I'm recording vocals, I like to compress a little bit on the way in, not too heavily. I like to do most of that in the box with my Universal Audio plugins, but I try to make, 2 to 3 dB of compression just to catch the peaks, just to tame the vocal track a little bit. I use the Grace Design, nice plugin, so a nice piece of hardware. Again, you can research this stuff online. Check it out on sweetwater.com. It's got reviews on this. This is the Grace Design M502 compressor. So it's coming from the mic cable into the Neve, into the Grace Design, out of that into my PreSonus on one of my channels where I'm going in the line in, not the XLR, and I got the input all the way down on the PreSonus, so I'm using really most of the signal coming from the 500 series stuff, okay, into my DAW, which is Studio One or Pro Tools or whatever you want to use. As you know, I use Studio One by PreSonus. And then from there, now you have a well-recorded, nice hot signal. I'm recording around -12, -18 dB. Again, don't want to record too hot into your system. Get a nice conservative level with a nice mic, a decent microphone, good cable in through either some hardware, some outboard gear if you want, or you could just go directly on the preamps of your interface. That's perfectly acceptable. It'll sound perfectly fine. Then from there, I use the plugins to kind of shape the sound. And again, one of my favorite plugins, I'm sure you're all looking at the screen yelling, I know you're going to say it again. Yes, I'm going to say it again. I use primarily Slate Digital and Universal Audio plugins on all my channels, especially vocals. Love the Virtual Console collection, love the Virtual Tape Machine. It gives it that nice, warm, round, silky, creamy feel to any instrument, but especially vocals. It's where it's the most noticeable is on vocals. Love those two plugins. Gives it some nice, you could call it polish. I call it a more professional sound. From there, we'll do some EQ. I'll use, one of, a dozen of my EQs that I use. It could be really any EQ. Again, you can achieve this with stock plugins. But again, I like the third-party Universal Audio stuff. It gives it that sound that you don't get from the stock plugin. That's something special. That's what I call it. And then from there, I'll compress with usually either an LA2A style compressor or an 1176 on vocals. sometimes the Fairchild, but more times than not, the LA2A. If you watch any of my mixing videos and you see a vocal, male, female, doesn't matter what style of music, 9 out of 10 times I'm using the LA2A. Why? Because it's a smooth compressor where you can really compress it, really push the vocal up in the mix, and it doesn't sound compressed. It sounds smooth and it sounds warm and it sounds round. That's what I typically go for. That's what gives it that finished off quality sound, okay? And that's really it. So you're going from having a great singer to mic, making sure you have the proper mic for the proper singer, what sounds good. You put a vocalist in a vocal booth, try to have 2 or 3 microphones that they can do some test singing into so you can listen back, have them sing the verse and the chorus of a song that they're about to record. Listen back and choose which one you like. Every singer's different. Again, you don't have to have $5,000 microphones. You can do this with a Shure SM57 or the SM7B or a Rode NT1A like I showed you. Or if you want to go to something like the Lawton, you can go to that. I also have, which I don't have with me, I would have brought it out here, but I have it on loan. I also have a Mojave Audio MA200, which is about $1,000 microphone. It's a tube microphone. So I have the Lawton, which is a solid state, the Mojave Audio, which is a tube mic, and then I have the NT1A, the Shure SM57, both dynamics, right? And then this SM7B, which is a dynamic microphone as well. So I have kind of a little of everything. I have a tube mic, solid state mic, both high-end condensers, mid-range price large condenser, and then a couple dynamic microphones. And that covers 99.999% of all the singers I have use one of those 4 or 5 microphones. And that's how I get that sound. Good cables into some 500 series outboard gear, but you don't need to use that. Again, you could just go right into your interface if you'd like. You still should get a professional sound. And then I shape that with the plugins that I like. The Universal Audio stuff, the Slate Digital stuff, all those things combined is what makes a vocal sound great. And again, this is one way to do it. Right? I'm telling you the way I do it. There's 1,000 ways to get this done. Everyone's going to have an opinion on gear. What gear do you use? Oh, do I use this kind of preamp, that type of preamp? You can argue forever on what's better. Again, like I said in my last video, it's not better. It's just different. What sounds good to you? But if you start with a good singer and a decent microphone, even if you go straight into your little M box, you should get a really good vocal sound. And if you know how to use EQ and you know how to use compression, you should be able to get a professional vocal sound. You shouldn't need any more than that. All this extra stuff with the 500 series stuff, this type of stuff, or any other outboard gear, is just a little icing on the cake. But the bare bones of it is a great singer, a decent microphone, and knowing how to use EQ and compression, excuse me. So I hope that was helpful for someone that wrote in. That's how I do it. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, visionrecordingstudios@yahoo.com. Again, please like, please subscribe. Thank you so much for the support. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time right here in Vision Mix Studios. Take care, guys.